like that. At least I'm halfway towards you, so our contact should be faster.
Yeah, it's only, what is it, a half-second delay for the moon?
No, it's actually more than that. It's over a second.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll try to remember that.
1 1/4 or something in that order.
Ah, yes.
That's one way, and then on the way back.
Yes, yeah, so about a 3-second round trip.
Yeah.
Add another 5 minutes for my thinking time.
That makes it 10 minutes, is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Finally got my reading glasses.
Yeah, these glasses here, not my reading glasses. They're meant for the TV because, I read with 3 diopters, like close.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, about a 1.5 diopter. And it's just right for the distance from the display, the computer to me.
Yeah, these are good for the computer. The way I've got it set up in my office here, the computer screen, and it's good for reading right up to reading books as long as they're not super fine print. Works just fine.
Yeah, I got no trouble with acuity. It's just getting the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one of my smartphone. The smallest print it can produce, and I can read it, and that's small. My wife complains about when I set it up to a more acceptable size. It's still not good enough for her. But
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, it's just fine.
I was actually shocked when I first tried these on, and read the phone. The difference was night and day. Just boom. So.
Oh yeah, it makes a difference. See, I've got hearing aids now. I have them since a year, and that's why I can see better.
That's the only thing I've been good with all my life is I've got a very excellent hearing. So
yeah, I used to be okay until 3-4 years ago or so, and then, especially my right ear, it's not as good as my left ear. And we knew that for years when we went on, my wife and I, when Hilka and I went on car trips, we'd, I sit drive and my right ear wasn't listening too well.
Mm-hmm.
And her left ear isn't hearing so well. So we had to basically just shout every time we wanted to talk to each other. And it wasn't a noise. It's not a noisy car, it's just a regular background. And so, well, that's gone by the wayside now. I can hear well.
Yes.
And, actually very well. I mean, I've had it for a year now, the hearing aids.
Yeah.
And they're running on Bluetooth. So,
wow.
I can control it with my smartphone, volume and all the other things, and treble and bass and so on. And so they work pretty well.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, they weren't cheap either, but
No. My dad, he was hard of hearing all the time I was growing up because he was too stubborn to do anything about it. But he lost his hearing in the war, and the silly thing was Veterans Affairs would have paid for hearing aids. Yeah. Well, they did eventually when he finally sort of was forced to confess that he had bad hearing. But, if he got so good at reading lips, if you were facing him, you wouldn't notice that he was hard of hearing.
Well, in my case, I mean, I knew it was coming. I saw the progression because, I'm into electronics, as you know, or I was retired now, but I have all the tools to generate sound and tones and frequencies and so on. And I knew what was dropping off as time went on. Hello, Haley.
Hi, Haley. Hi, Alan. Hey, Gordon.
I guess
Hello, Gordon. Did you get my? I'm not able to get on my camera. Are you?
We can see a picture of you.
Yeah, but it's my iPad. I'm pressing camera and it's not for some
Well, maybe you should disconnect
Oh,
your
here.
iPad.
I got it. Wait.
Oh, okay.
Hey, there you are.
Hi.
I don't see myself.
We see you.
Are you on a cell phone?
iPad, she said.
iPad.
Yeah. Oh, now we're looking out your apartment.
Okay.
There, now we see you.
But I'm not getting myself. Stop.
Well, you're
That's
getting.
okay. We'll tell you if you do something wrong.
Okay. All right. Yes, Gordon, did you get my message that I would like to speak?
He's
Gordon?
not on.
Oh,
You wandered off.
I just wanted to have a couple minutes to talk about some events.
We're streaming live to YouTube right now, so maybe after the meeting.
Okay.
Oh, joy. Thanks, Gordon.
We're streaming live. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off. I don't need to go on camera.
Yeah. You know, we're talking about Beaver Lake as a dark sky and astronomy event type of location. Have you read the paper lately and listened to the news? The foxes.
I was there today.
Oh yeah, the foxes don't like us.
I know. I was a little bit nervous, but I didn't run into any coyotes. Are they coyotes or foxes or what?
Well, yeah, either way. I think they're coyotes, not foxes. Foxes aren't as aggressive as coyotes.
Yeah. That's I hope that's not going to be a problem for our event on August 12th. We may have coyote patrol, but
just carry a big stick with you. They're
yeah,
chickens.
baseball bat. A baseball bat.
Yeah.
I was there today. It was very interesting. And there was a guy that was standing there talking to people, and he was doing a cycling tour, and he was talking about Beaver Lake and how it became there and the whole history of the lake. And I asked him if maybe he would talk and about the beavers that came from North Van. And then they had to decide it was a salmon movement. Like there was salmon and there was beavers, but they can't really cohabitate. So they had to choose the beavers because the beavers came there and they just wanted to kind of go with what was going on. So that's why it was a sort of a whole story about it. And I thought it was interesting. And I asked maybe if he would talk on August 12th, if he would come.
Well, we don't have a public meeting on August 12th. Daily August, we never have a meeting.
No, he would come to the in-person event that Michael Levy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My apology. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He said that they probably have people there from there because I thought it was just so interesting to know more about this area.
Was he with the Ecological Society or whatever? I can't quite remember.
He wasn't with them. He said that he just because he does tours, he just did his own research. But anyways, he said he would love to, so he's probably going to come and maybe just talk. But they may have somebody there too. I wasn't sure if that was something that like how involved they're going to be for that evening, or if they want to be like doing some kind of talk.
Well, I think the ecology of the park, of course, is what we're, mainly involved with. Is the idea we just happen to be more involved in the nocturnal ecology, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't have someone there talking about it as an overall, the imbalance of nature in the park, as you say.
Yeah. But we should ask them if they would offer to do that before maybe this guy, or he may come, I don't know, but it would be, maybe that's something that they would want to do.
Yeah.
It's just sort of an idea. I thought about it. I wanted to share it.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. Sounds like a good idea.
And I did hear back from the LPA guy that spoke to the national community. I don't know if I should talk to you.
I think we can do that offline.
Offline
later. Haley.
Okay, good. Some good stuff though. Good stuff.
Okie doke. Hi, Susanna.
Hey, Haley.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Susanna.
Hey, Carl. Good to see you.
Carl, I
Same.
like your planet behind you. How did you do that?
The which?
The planet. Or
In
I
the
like Earth.
background?
Yeah, your background.
That's the Earth.
I know it looks amazing behind
Well,
you.
I'm at the moment. I'm out in space.
It looks like you could be. It looks amazing.
Carl's at the ISS and I'm on the moon. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Oh yeah.
Both have views of the Earth.
Oh wow. Yours is really good. And you have your moon there because we're going to talk about the moon.
Yeah, that I'm just went ahead in time to the future lunar base. So there I am. There, lunar city almost is what that is. So being back and forth.
Hey, Matthew. It's good to see you.
Yeah, hi Matthew.
So I'm not seeing.
Well, there he is.
I don't see anybody. I don't know what's going on here.
Hey, Matthew.
Hey,
Hmm.
And there's Gordon. Looks like he's looking at me.
Hmm.
yes, we've got a few minutes to go before we get to time.
Well, while I've got, I don't see Phil here yet, but I'll just let everyone know a bit of news I found out yesterday that the Merit Astronomical Society has lost its permit to the gravel pit.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, yeah. So I would hold off on writing the donation as we do annually until we hear further from Mark McLaughlin as to the status. He's sent off a new permit request to the new department that now has control over the pit site. I mean, we've got less than 2 months to deal with this, but hopefully he'll hear back, and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, hopefully it all works out. It does sound like a bit of a mess up there.
Yeah.
Especially with the fires.
That's
Yeah.
certainly a concern.
Everyone's walking on eggshells, I'm sure, right now up there.
Yeah.
Even though we've been allowed up there off season, like not MSQ week, but we've all, as long as you had a telescope with you, the park rangers and the maintenance operations guys would leave us alone, but that's not even, they're not even given that leeway right now. It's like, no one's allowed on the pit, you're being asked to leave.
Yeah.
You know, Susanna was Doug McLaughlin. Was he going to? I think I said the wrong name. Was he going to check with Manning Park if they could go there if nothing works out at Merritt?
That is a suggestion I did mention to him. I had a conversation with Haley as well. We chatted this week about some things, and so it's certainly a proposal we could put forth if the pit does fall through. Mark also has some ideas of some contacts he has up in the Merritt Kilchenna area. So we're scrambling. Hopefully we can find something.
See a few more people showing up. Yes, maybe just give it another minute. All right, well, we're past 7:30, so maybe I'll get things underway. So, yes, welcome everyone to our monthly lecture. My name is Gordon Farrell. I'm the president of the RAS Vancouver Center. So we hold these every month online, at least during the pandemic. So see how tonight's go, and it'd be nice to start doing these in person at some point. Fortunately, I have to start off with some sad news. Our webmaster, Ken Jackson, passed away on June 21st of complications from some leukemia treatment. Yeah, so this is a shock. We didn't actually know that he was ill, but yeah, so we received the news last week. So the family is asked in lieu of flowers for donations to Because I Am a Girl. RAS Vancouver Center has made such a donation. But yes, this was pretty rough news. So yeah, just wanted to pass that along to everyone. On a brighter note, we do have the virtual Starry Nights at SFU still going on. So Friday night, or tomorrow night's event has been confirmed. So I just posted the YouTube link on Meetup for that just prior to the meeting. Another event we have coming up is the Perseid Meteor Shower with Metro Parks from August 10th to 14th. Yes, this is mostly a virtual event, at least from on the August 10th side. So we will be doing a presentation. There will be some in-person viewing at Alder Grove Park in the 11th to 14th days. Unfortunately, by the time we got all that information, it's already been sold out. So there's really no chance for us to let people attend that who haven't already voiced their interest. But yeah.
Just an interruption here, Gordon. Volunteers that are club members can still go if they take telescopes.
Yes.
For the public to view through.
Yeah, so some people have been approached about volunteering. So we're just finishing up the details of how that's going to work. Yes, so we are always looking for volunteers. So if anyone is interested in participating in events, you can reach out to Haley. She's our events coordinator, or just really anyone in council, and we'll make sure to get you on the list. Again, it's primarily virtual events at this point in time, but we hope at some point we can start doing more things in person again. So the national organization also publishes a number of books for beginner to advanced observing. So those are available at the rasc.ca website. If we were meeting in person, we'd also have some of these for sale outside the lecture hall. There's also a number of teaching guides. So if there's any teachers, these books can help with class preparation. We have a number of observing certificate programs. So if you're interested in observing, there's a number of programs you can apply to and get certification when you meet the requirements of various certificates. And I also do duty as the editor of the newsletter. So if anyone's interested in contributing articles or photos to the newsletter, you can reach me at that address, novaeditor@rasvancouver.com, and I'd be happy to hear from you. So yes, there are a number of benefits from joining the RASC, Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. There's Sky News magazine that you get a subscription to. You get the annual Observer's Handbook. There's a telescope lunar program that you would have access to, and our extensive book library up at SFU. There's also the Trottier Observatory at SFU and the Anthony Overton Memorial Observatory in Maple Ridge. So if you're interested in joining, you can reach out to Susanna or Marla. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the last two items are on hold until we have access to SFU again, because they're closed to non-essential visitors right now. So with all that out of the way, get to tonight's speaker. So tonight we have Matthew Borghese returning to give us another talk this year. He's a NASA JPL Solar System Ambassador, the only one in Canada, providing media relations and ongoing NASA programs. And tonight he will be talking to us about Moon 2024. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Hey everyone, Thanks, Gordon, for the introduction. Let me pull up our presentation. Everybody, let me know if you can see that.
Yes, fine.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks. And so, as mentioned, I'm Matt Borghese. I am with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And here we go. So hopefully this is working. So I am a volunteer with the JPL Solar System Ambassador Program. And so it's an organization of former educators, people in communications like myself, who go out and do outreach for the JPL to talk about the missions that NASA does, and often about the missions that the Jet Propulsion Laboratory does. And so I've spoken with REST Vancouver before, and I'm very, very glad and happy to be back. And I really enjoy these invites, and so I really appreciate it. And hopefully I can give you a bit of new information today. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or ask. I mean, our group's not that big tonight, so we should be able to get to everyone's questions, including the hard ones. Last time I got some really hard ones, but it was a lot of fun, so I appreciate it. But yeah, so for those who are not familiar, NASA has several different laboratories, divisions, if you want to call it, things like that. They do different things. They have different missions. And so JPL was actually founded prior to the creation of NASA, and they were involved in America's first satellite, Explorer 1. They have been involved in lots of different things, including the Voyager probes that we talked about last time that I was here. And those are the first two and only human-made objects that have left the solar system. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory is also responsible for turning Mars into the only planet in the solar system entirely populated by robots. So we're working on that as well. And if you can see, it's hard to see on the screen here. It's a little easier when we're up at a big presentation. But the infographic there, all those little lines are all the different missions that the JPL has launched to different planets or asteroids or things like that, including a lot of Earth science. And so I'd like to kick off with a bit of news to give everyone a little update as to what's happening at NASA with some recent news, which we've had a lot of, actually. First up, NASA selected 2 new missions to go to Venus. As you know, Venus is one of our direct neighbors. It's closer to the sun, and it is a total inferno. But we believe that it might have been the first habitable world in the solar system, complete with an ocean and an Earth-like climate. And so there will be 2 missions heading out there, one of which will be Veritas, which is the Venus Emissivity Radio Science INSAR Topography and Spectroscopy satellite. And what that's going to do, that is actually from the JPL, and that will provide mapping of the planet, which is useful on its own, but is also the first step into planning how we may launch and land future missions on Venus. As you remember if you're here for the Mars talk, a lot of the work to get a rover or any sort of lander off a planet is starts with the mapping. You got to find a good landing site with really highly detailed maps, and so we will start with that. So NASA's Aqua satellite also has on it what's called AIRS, an atmospheric infrared sounder, and they were able to map out the deadly heat wave that hit the Pacific Northwest. And if you can see on that chart, I mean, it's pretty much the whole of British Columbia. It is just that heat dome that we just recently experienced was really unprecedented. Not to use that word that's been used an unprecedented amount of time lately, but yeah, it was a really phenomenal event, and you can see the results of it there. So one of the things that NASA does quite heavily is Earth science, including climate science and oceanographic research as well. So it's just another one of the things that they were tracking. And so all that information to study it, that all is released publicly, released to universities and things like that. And on June 15th, Brazil became the 12th country to join the Artemis Accords, which we'll actually talk about a little bit later. But they were the third nation to sign under the current Biden administration. They joined South Korea and New Zealand. And so the Accords are a common set of principles that will help humanity work out how we're going to explore in the continuing decades. And not to miss our good friend Perseverance. It is doing phenomenally on Mars. And I love to say this too, this is a photograph taken on Mars, a selfie. This is not a rendering. This isn't an artist's depiction of what it would look like. This is what it does look like, or what it did. And since we are on Mars actively right now, we can give the weather. And so the most current weather report we have was from July 6th, Sol 135, meaning it has been on Mars for 135 days. And the high was minus 19 Celsius and the low was minus 82. So yeah, you definitely need to bring your coat to Mars. It is pretty chilly. But a little bit closer to home is the moon. And we would, the last time we were there was 1972, and it has been a long time of science and development and trial and error, and we are preparing to go back. And we've got a little bit of a video here, so please enjoy.
50 years ago, we pioneered the path to the moon. The trail we blazed cut through the fictions of science and showed us all what was possible. Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024, and this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
Space Launch System. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production
and more in testing,
this system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions. We need a capsule that can support humans from launch through deep space and return safely back to Earth. For this, we've built Orion.
This is NASA's next generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources,
we're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon. Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable, that can land anywhere on the lunar surface. The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits.
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity,
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions. In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
this ice can be extracted and purified for water. It can be separated in oxygen for breathing or hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we're building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go for humanity. We go to the moon and on to Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint toward all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going. We are going. We are going. We're going.
I love that video. I love that video so much. And big thanks to William Shatner for narrating that video. And so that brings us to Artemis, which is our project name for our return to the moon. And in the video, they talk about a whole lot of things. And so thank you for joining me as we dive into them. And they've rebuilt this program from the ground up, everything from the structures on the ground. There is an entirely new launch pad that's they're sort of built for it. The space launch system, Orion, the Gateway, the commercial lunar landers, even the spacesuits were redesigned. And so let's start with how we get there, and that's the space launch system. It may surprise you, but it will launch things into space. And typically, the rockets that we used before were smaller. The space shuttle was a fantastic vehicle, but its payload capacity was quite limited. And so it took, if you look at the International Space Station, it took dozens of trips up there to get all the modules up little by little, one piece at a time. But with the space launch system, we can do things in a lot faster manner, because it is like going from a small two-door hatchback to a semi-truck. This is, as mentioned, the largest rocket in history. Not the tallest, but it does have the most thrust. It can take objects, the space shuttle would take objects into Earth orbit, into low Earth orbit, but this can take things to the moon and to Mars, which is incredibly important for us and our scientific goals and our exploration goals. It uses two solid state boosters on the side, a lot like the space shuttle did. So those will help it get off the ground, and then those will fall away, and then it'll keep going with its payload. And we're actually, it is being built. I've done these lectures for a little while now on the Artemis program, and every time I have to keep updating the photos because they keep building and building. And so in the beginning, they were assembling it, and now they have, they were testing the pieces separately, and now they are assembling everything for the first trial run. I think there might be some questions in the chat. Yes, we will get to those. Talking about will Musk Starship make the SLS redundant? That's a really good question. We can definitely get back to it. They're two systems. Hopefully, reusable items will make single-use items redundant. That's definitely the goal. The challenge right now is that technology is being created. And if the president of the United States gives you an objective and says, you will go back to the moon by 2024, you cannot put all your eggs into one basket, no matter how good the basket looks, because the challenge is that you just don't know. And so at the time, NASA is working with several projects, several partners on several different things, trying to see what works the best and what's going to get us there. And so they've just started stacking. So this is the Kennedy Space Center. This is in the vehicle assembly building. It's that huge building. I think it has the largest door in the world. I think it's the largest single room in the world. I could be wrong, but I think it does have the largest door. And so the whole rocket's being stacked there. You can see those. But if you see at the top, there's that small little yellow thing there. So this was June 22nd. They were putting that on top. That's the upper stage. It links the upper stage and the main body of it. And this was on July 5th. So they were putting in the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, the ICPS. And so that is, if you were to kind of look at it sideways, it's the booster for the actual Orion and things like that. Those will sit on top of that there. And the part we were just looking at before, that cone is at the bottom now of this. We keep going taller and taller and taller until we complete the whole rocket. And that definitely brings us to Orion. If you can see the bottom there, the bottom half of that on the left side is what the ICPS that was being stacked. But Orion is a capsule, and so people say, "Wow, it looks a lot like the Apollo capsule," and it does. It definitely does. It is larger, and it is also built to withstand the rigors of going to Mars, of which the moon is a quick jaunt back and forth. But this is really built to go to Mars and to protect a crew for a longer duration space mission, of which radiation is a huge, huge challenge, and of which power generation and power efficiency has to be improved. If you think back to the 60s and the 70s when we landed on the moon, it was full, the capsule was full of wires and buttons and switches and all the contraptions that 1960s space travel entailed. Now they can be replaced safely with computers, with touch screens, with things like that. You see that on SpaceX's Dragon or Dragon 2, which is a capsule that they're sending to the International Space Station. And so this Orion has the benefit of old ideas with new technology and of proven and tested lunar technology, along with new ways of imagining that for the moon. And so take a look here a bit at Orion, and it is a wonderfully simple device. The front that's flat there that'll connect into things. It will have a service module, and that will be built by the European Space Agency. So the ESA will support with that, and it will be able to survive this stuff in a way that wasn't really possible before, and that's never been attempted. The challenge is, how much radiation safety is too much or how much is too little. We don't know because we've never been there. We've never really taken things to Mars. I mean, we've never retrieved a sample from Mars, right? So we've never taken something there, had it become radiated through space, and then return and really analyze it. So everything is our best guess through the use of a lot of science and testing. And that leads us to Artemis mission number 1. And so this will be an uncrewed flight of Orion to the moon. It will go to the moon. It will deploy some CubeSats, which are the small satellites that will come along with it. It should take a little over a month, around between 26 and 42 days. And it will orbit the moon and it'll return back. And so we will be able to do all that testing. These were some of the early Apollo missions as well, for those who remember those, like the Mercury and Gemini. And those missions really were about testing things a little at a time, sending up animals, sending up humans, sending humans further, sending them longer, that kind of stuff. And so this will be the same kind of thing. So the first Artemis mission, the goal is for that to happen towards the end of this year. I think they're looking at around November. Obviously, those dates could change, but if we are going to land on the moon by 2024, we do need to get on it. The clock is ticking, and so the goal is for Artemis 1 to launch later this year. And in preparation for that as well, they're also building and starting to assemble and test the pieces for Artemis 2. So it's a long pipeline, but all the pieces are really falling in place. And once, like they mentioned, once it gets into space, the goal is for the Lunar Gateway. And so this will be a new space station that will orbit either the Earth or the Moon. It can change its orbit, which is really cool. The International Space Station is at this point like a 6-bedroom house. It's really big. It is crewed 24/7, so there's always somebody on the ISS. This is more like a studio apartment. So this will be a lot smaller, but it'll also not be crewed year-round. So people will take voyages from here down to the surface of the Moon. They will stay there for longer and longer durations, and then they'll return back up to Gateway, and then they will head back to Earth. And eventually, this will be the gas station, if you will, for our trip to Mars. So for those of you who are familiar with space travel, the most expensive thing is to get something off of planet Earth. It requires the most amount of energy. We have the highest gravity of anything that we're trying to attempt, and so it's the most expensive. And if you have to take, it's the same as with any journey. If you had to take all the fuel and food and oxygen and and scientific equipment from Earth all the way to your destination and then back without being able to stop or refuel or do any of that stuff, you would need a massive, massive rocket to get it off the ground. And so if we can break up that trip by sending things in pieces to the to Gateway or to the ISS and things like that, we can then make that trip so much more economical, so much more fast by breaking the pieces up, sending multiple trips, that kind of thing. And it cuts down on the cost dramatically, including with some of our commercial partners as well. If we can get our payload up and allow them to sell excess capacity with private companies for other kinds of satellites or other kinds of missions, then that reduces the costs even further. And so, as alluded to, the Artemis Accords are a document and an agreement that several countries have signed on to, including Canada, which we will get into. And it basically talks about the next generation of space exploration. In the 60s and the 70s, they signed agreements that say that nobody could own the moon. The United States, just because we were there, we don't own it. But that doesn't say much about commercial opportunities. If you can't own something, it also becomes its own kind of problem, because then who's responsible? If a private company wants to go to the moon and put up a giant advertisement there or something, these kind of things are all the kind of questions that we want to talk about. Who owns the things when they come back? When the United States brought back moon rocks, they sent them to universities, they sent them to other countries for study. And so, if we're going to bring back pieces of Mars, if we are going to go to Mars and bring back things, if we're going to bring back actual commercial grade volumes of things from the moon, who owns these things and who can say who goes when and where? Those are lots of things that we'll discuss with Artemis. And it's also an exploration agreement as well, because if you take a look here at the Lunar Gateway, much like the International Space Station, this is going to be built in partnership with our international partners, including Canada, which is one of our closest allies when it comes to space exploration. Not just space exploration, but getting things done in space, the hard work of space travel. The Canadians have always been with the United States. If you look at the lunar lander, the actual legs that were made that first touched down on the moon back with the Apollo 11, those were actually made in Montreal. So Canada's always been a partner with the United States on space exploration. And if you take a look here, so the ESA will be building the service module. Japan will work on the logistics resupply modules. The Canada will work on the Canadarm3. And so for those of you who are big fans of Canadarm, of which I definitely am, the first Canadarm was on the space shuttle, and that was operated entirely by Americans. But it was so successful that the United States said we should really partner more with Canada, and that actually led to an invitation to fly aboard the space shuttle for a future Canadian astronaut. And so that built up the Canadian astronaut corps, of which there still remains, and it was the start of a wonderful partnership. And the second Canadarm is now on the International Space Station, and that is operated jointly by the United States and Canada. So now Canada gets to operate that arm, and it does a ton of work out there, and it'll catch things in flight. It'll help repair the station, and so Canadarm3 is going to be another leap forward, and so that is going to live entirely on Gateway, but it's going to be run completely by Canadians. And so it'll be run either in person with Canadians in space, or from the ground from a Canadian operations station. And it will also work autonomously. And we've got a really cool video here from the CSA. The Canadarm3 is going to be a huge leap forward. It's actually going to be one very long arm, and then another smaller arm that will repair and do modifications to the large arm, which will reduce spacewalks. Right now, sometimes if something breaks, or if you want to change the end of the arm to do something different, you've got to do a spacewalk for it. But that'll all be able to be done by a whole suite of tools that will be on a smaller arm. And what's really cool too is that it'll be like a human, it'll be like a caterpillar. The front of the arm will be able to attach to a different part of the ship and then lift off the other side. So it'll be able to move around as the structure is changing and grows, which it can't do now on the ISS. But yeah, it'll be like a total change, and it'll be built by Canadians in Canada. It'll be run by Canadians either in space or at home. And it creates jobs, and it creates technical capacity for Canada to create and to keep thinking for the future, which helps everybody. We all want to win. Ooh, some new comments. Yeah, the moon has a huge billboard. Exactly. It's the kind of ad you can't turn off or look away from, just to be there as well. Passenger freight would ride the Gateway. Yeah, exactly. Gateway would be really great as just literally a gateway back and forth from the moon. And so one of the cool things is, as part of the Canadarm agreement, the United States said, well, Canada, if you help us build this arm and you do a great job at it, we love it, why don't you come join us when we fly around the moon? And so Artemis 2 will be the first crewed mission. So Artemis 1, remember, we'll go around the moon. Nobody will be aboard. We're just going to test out the systems, make sure they work. Artemis 2 is going to send the first people back to the moon, not to land, but to orbit around, same as the Apollo missions did. You go a little bit each time. And so in 2023, Artemis 2 is going to have a Canadian astronaut aboard. And that will make Canada the second country in the history of the world to have an astronaut in deep space. So, I mean, I think that's really no greater sign of partnership than that. And if you're wondering who it would be, this is the NASA astronaut class of 2017. So this is the first Artemis trained crew, of which there are 2 Canadians. And so those are 2 CSA astronauts. I have their backgrounds here. One is Jennifer Sidney Gibbons, who was an assistant professor in combustion, which is a pretty cool title, at the Department of Engineering at University of Cambridge, a pretty good school. And Joshua Kutrick, who was a Royal Canadian Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, another very cool title as well. And so they trained at Kennedy or at Johnson as well with the astronaut class of 2017. And so their nickname were the Turtles. because when they arrived, there was a bit of a flood. And a funny story is that they actually, the current class is named by the previous class. They always give their predecessors their nickname, and so they gave them the Turtles. And another funny note too, 3 of these astronauts were JPL interns at one point in time. So if you are looking to go into space, interning at JPL is not a bad way to go. And it also leads us to the question about SpaceX. And whenever I do any sort of presentation, people are always asking about SpaceX. I myself am a very big fan of SpaceX because SpaceX is a win-win for everyone. It is a win for the United States because if it goes well, NASA and the United States military can purchase ride shares, can purchase payloads, and it cuts the cost to the American taxpayer, which is always a good thing. It's great because it's good for science. It is taking new and innovative ideas and innovative methodology and making them work. And it's good for testing. SpaceX uses what's called iterative testing. So they build lots of things, they blow up lots of things. Yeah, SpaceX is like Uber Lyft. Essentially, yeah, if they are phenomenal, but they're also not the only player in the game. There's also a company called Blue Origin, which is led by Jeff Bezos from Amazon, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, SNC, Aerojet Rocketdyne. The NASA contracts with lots of folks. There's no, I mean, there is a bit of a factory sort of at the JPL where we assemble and build things, but it's NASA doesn't really have factories. So all of, that people keep saying, well, when is NASA going to work with commercial partners? And the truth is they always have been. These things are all built by people. There's a company called the United Space Launch Alliance that built the rockets that the space shuttle went up on. And the space shuttle itself was built by a company called the United Space Alliance USA, which was built up of several private companies that merged together for that project. And NASA just awarded the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Award, the CLPS, to SpaceX to land Americans on the moon. It is a bit controversial just because the people who didn't win the contract would like to have won the contract, as one might imagine, and are probably going to take that to court. But at the end of the day, the United States and NASA are always looking for the best deal, the best bang for the buck. And right now, the Starship is looking pretty good from SpaceX. I've been following those launches in Texas. Those are really, really interesting. They're launching them and landing them, that sort of thing. And if they can get them to the moon, that would be pretty great too. And we also have a video here. So there will be lots of commercial opportunities for partners in terms of landers and rovers. And here's one that'll explain a bit about one such project called Viper, which I love all the names, like the names are the best.
We know from decades of study that the moon has water, but where and how much? In 2023, a robotic rover will explore the moon's surface in search of water ice. NASA's Viper moon rover will perform the first resource mapping mission on another world, using advanced instruments and tools to determine the location and concentration of water on the moon.
To send Viper to the moon, we're leveraging industry as part of our Commercial Lunar Payload Services program, a program designed to send science instruments and technology payloads to the surface of the moon. Viper represents a very different development paradigm. We are developing each instrument for launch on Eclipse ahead of Viper, totally flipping on its head how we normally do this. This is truly creative. An industry partner will launch Viper to the moon's south pole. This is a place where no human or rover has ever been before.
The rover's survey will provide scientists with the most detailed view of the moon's water to date and point to spots where water could be harvested by future astronauts.
Viper will be the first resource mapping mission on the surface of another celestial body. It represents a new kind of mission for NASA in which the objectives of advancing science and human exploration are closer than ever. The measurements that Viper's instruments will make can help us understand the source and distribution of the water and other volatiles on the moon, giving us insight into the evolution of the moon and the Earth-Moon system. The moon's water is also a precious resource that could be extracted to support human exploration of the moon and beyond. What we learn from Viper will bring us a step closer to developing a sustainable, long-term human presence on the moon.
We know from
Yeah, and so that brings us back to one of the big questions I get, obviously, is why do we want to go back? We sort of saw what was there, the 60s, the 70s. They're on the moon. There's rocks. There's no atmosphere. It would be very, very difficult to live there. Why go back? And some of those points have already been raised with the water. Water is, obviously it's incredibly important to human life, but in terms of exploration, it is really precious because you can convert it into oxygen, you can drink it, and you can turn it into rocket fuel. That's pretty much that's the whole ballgame. That's everything you need right there in water. And to find such, we always knew there was a bit of ice on the moon, but it wasn't until 2009 that they did this really detailed mapping that they found that there's just millions of tons of ice, an incredible amount for a celestial body that doesn't have an atmosphere. And so it's a fantastic opportunity to work with it, including something called helium-3. And so this is something where it is yet to be done. There isn't a nuclear reactor that can do this. But the idea is that on Earth, when we have nuclear reactors, they take these elements, and when they get the energy from them, the result is a radioactive substance. So dangerous radioactive material is a result of getting that energy out of those materials. But helium-3 is a naturally occurring element that comes from the sun, but it is dispersed and sort of broken up largely by our atmosphere. And since there is no atmosphere on the moon, it's able to collect there intact. And the idea is that if you were to use helium-3 in a nuclear reaction, it could create helium, which is a totally harmless element, and energy. And so it is sort of like the holy grail of nuclear power if we can get it to work. We know it's there. We know it's on the moon. We can mine it from the moon if we were to set up facilities. But the trick would be to get a reactor that works with it. But once you have that material in abundance, I'm sure somebody could get it to work. And rare earth metals, REMs, which are right now mostly in China, which creates some complications. But the truth is they are used in all of our technology. They are increasingly important for human life and increasingly important for our goals to fight climate change by creating more resourceful and more useful technology to do that. We're going to need these rare earth metals, of which there might be quite a bit of an abundance on the moon. And so that's why this Popular Mechanics, they set this up. It's kind of like someone's background here in the Zoom. If we could get things going, we could mine the moon. We could mine tons and tons and tons of the moon, and it actually wouldn't affect the moon. The moon's quite a large body. And so I think it estimated that if we were to take 1 million metric tons of material off the moon every year, it would take something like 250 years before the moon would be even slightly affected. So yeah, there is an incredible opportunity there, not just for science, but for human life, for bettering life on Earth, to work on the moon and to extract things from it. And the ultimate goal, Gateway is not just a path from the Earth to the moon. Gateway is a path from the Earth to Mars. Our goal is to be the first humans on Mars. and we are working diligently with it. Some other countries are working on that as well, but between our robotics, between our exploration, with strong budget support from the president, the previous president and the current president, it looks like we are on track to meet our goals to get to Mars by the 2030s. 2030s are really a great time to go in terms of where the planets are positioned. It wouldn't be as good of a deal to go until quite a bit later if we miss the 2030s. But yeah, our goal is to go to Mars, and Gateway is the way to do it. There are lots of options, people said, but if you were to just build one ship that went straight to Mars, it would be such a But if you can break that up by going to the moon first and using that as a gas station and a waypoint, then it's really the smart way to go. So Gateway, Moon, Mars, and thank you very much for listening to my presentation. And I'd love to take some questions if anyone has any.
Let's see, any questions in the chat? Yeah, so was that first question about will Musk's Starship make the SLS redundant?
No, I don't think it will. I think reusable space technology will make all non-reusable space technology redundant, which is obviously the goal. That's definitely what we're looking for. And SpaceX put a lot of time and effort and money into reusable space technology. What people don't really know so much about is the fact that a lot of that time, effort, and money was from NASA and from the United States in general. So the Kennedy Space Center is in Cape Canaveral, Florida. It's on the coast there. And right next to it, it shares a border with the Cape Canaveral Air Force Base. And so the US Air Force has a rocket launching facility there as well. And so SpaceX has launched several military payloads. SpaceX gets a lot of funding from the US Air Force to launch some military and national security payloads. And so a lot of their testing is done with American dollars anyway. And so it's definitely the goal is to replace this stuff. But SLS has been in development for a long time, and it has a role right now to do what we need it to do. It's built with a different sort of mentality. The SpaceX stuff, you build it, you break it, you build another one. NASA builds to a different specification so that when they do build one of something, the goal is for it to work. And so that's why a lot of times you'll see in the papers, oh, this test went wrong, and it's kind of a huge deal because for the way NASA builds things, it shouldn't break. So when it does, everyone's quite shocked. But it's a different sort of process. It takes longer, but it does produce vehicles that we believe are incredibly safe for the people that travel them, which is obviously the most important thing. A question from William. He had his hand up.
All right. I don't know if you can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I had a number of questions, but let's just stick to a couple about the mission to Mars. I mean, you say the Orion capsule is nice and big, and for a 3-day trip to the moon, that's fine. But if you're going to Mars, which is like 18 to 24 months, it wouldn't be big enough on its own unless it's part of some bigger spacecraft. I mean, maybe I missed that part, but for the mission to Mars, you'd use Orion capsule with something else to give them more room, or how does that work?
Yeah, the service module, you can go inside it. It has things in it. It's kind of like the command module from Apollo. So there will be more room. It'll be a pretty Spartan journey, though. This is not, you're not flying first class to the moon, to Mars. If you want to be the first person to Mars, you're going to have to go on what future generations will laugh at and say, I can't believe you survived that journey. It's going to be pretty tight. And it'll be a no frills flight, So
right. Well, yeah, but I also wonder about if you, I mean, in certain science fiction shows, you'll see that when the missions to Mars, they have a rotating part of the spacecraft to give them gravity, but these guys aren't going to have gravity. So how do they stay in shape? Are they supposed to keep working out on equipment? And then is that going to be enough? Because they have to be in the gravity of Mars anyway, which is not as strong as Earth. But I mean, that will be a problem.
It's a great question. What they're doing now is they are doing a lot of long-term duration space trips, and so they're sending people up to the International Space Station to push that boundary, to stay up there for more than a year, stay there for a long time, so we can see what happens. When you get so yeah, it's a good question, but it's going to be a tough go. Especially for that first round in Orion, but yeah, they're not going to have gravity. They're not going to have a lot of the comforts that even you have on the International Space Station, because that's such a large habitat now. Yeah, it's a really good question though. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So some questions in the chat.
Peter Judicke, down the road, can the SLS be made more powerful by adding segments to make the solid boosters longer?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. It's built in its configuration now to have 2 of the solid state boosters. The Russians have different configurations, like with the Soyuz and things like that. Those have different boosters. I don't know if it could be done. I think the goal is probably to transition towards reusable vessels, but also the volume that can take up for right now is pretty good, especially if we're going to have a space station where we can just ferry things back and forth. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how much thought they would have to modifying it, especially if the SpaceX, what is it, spaceship goes well. Yeah. Next question. Politically, if there is a change in the U.S. Congress in 2020, how likely is it that Artemis will continue? Pretty likely. The funding that they get is typically not that short. It's a bit longer, and both sides of the House and Congress really want to see it go. Republicans made the pledge to get there by 2024, and Democrats surely don't want to let down a pledge that the other side made. And as long as it can stay within budget targets, I think it's pretty safe. It's really a very tiny drop in the American budget. It seems like a lot of money, and it definitely is, but it's not something that's going to break the bank. Yeah. Question. China likely has ambitions to have a presence on the moon. Has China shown interest in the Artemis Accord? Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, China does. They've just put up their space station, so they are going to start sending people to live in space on their own platform. They've sent some really amazing rovers to the moon. They sent some really amazing rovers to Mars. They've been sending back data from Mars. So they're definitely working on it. I think the United States would work with anyone to go to the moon and Mars safely, equitably, and peacefully, for sure. I'm obviously not in those chats between the United States and China, but I can imagine that if everyone could agree, then we could move forward. Question: is the dream of a space elevator still being envisioned? Oh, this is a good one. This is a bit of sci-fi that always comes around. The space elevator would be a giant sort of tether or pole between low Earth orbit and Earth, and where you could basically send things up really easily. The challenge with the space elevator is that the weight of the materials for the pole, for the tether, would be too heavy. They were looking at sort of the sort of nanite or nano sort of like composites, but it's just not economical to manufacture them. in bulk at the moment. So now we'll have to see what happens. And they break quite easily. They're pretty brittle under certain types of like flexing. So I don't know if it would work. And, I mean, if someone could solve that, that would definitely be a great idea. I don't know how much effort NASA's putting into that right now. Yeah, but good question. Thank you. Let's see. Without some sort of artificial weight, astronauts would be weak as a baby. Even space like Starship will figure this out. Yeah, Lee. Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Are any components of Lunar Gateway already being constructed by contractors right now? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think they're still putting together the bids, and then working that out. I know they're going through a slew of awards, or like contract awards. So you should see a lot of names start flying around now. People getting getting the contract to do this, getting the contract to that, and then after a few years, we should see some prototypes and things coming out. Lee wants to know, has China and Russia agreed to a lunar colony? No, I don't think so. I don't know how closely those two are actually working together. There will be some the way that the United States makes we call it like for lack of a better word, like space doors, the portals between two objects. There's sort of a way the United States does it. There's a way that the Russians do it, because they've been doing it for quite some time. And so there's a way like the Europeans do it. So really, when we talk about partnership, it's about making sure some of those sort of things work. So you can land the Orion at like a Russian space station, for example, and things like that. And so I haven't seen any interoperability between the Chinese and the Russians so far. William had a question.
Yeah, thanks. It seems like Douglas has a similar kind of question. I read an article some time ago, and I don't remember the details. It was about industrializing the moon. There is a danger of affecting the environment on the moon, almost like on the Earth. There's no atmosphere, of course, so you can't leave a lot of debris in the air because there's no air there. But it can still be a problem for space colonies, for example, or if you have telescopes on the moon, like radio telescopes or optical telescopes. The dust, you can actually shoot the dust some distance. For example, it won't stay suspended because there's no atmosphere, or you have lighting or radio interference or whatever. So industrialization of the moon, you still have to worry about the environment, apparently.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When we're going to these other planets, to the moon, things like that, what do we bring with us in terms of in the broader sense? Are we bringing bacteria? Are we bringing things like that from Earth, diseases? That kind of stuff. We're really worried about that. Or not worried, but we're really focused on mitigating that. We're really looking at the kind of things and the debris we leave behind and how that works. Astronauts, Apollo astronauts is still there. Exactly. The things we leave, and doing that in a conscious way. I think humanity looks at what we've done to our own planet, and sometimes we say we could have done things better, and we could have taken a different path. And we don't want to repeat the same mistakes on the moon or on Mars. And so a lot of that stuff is really being thought out. I think right now we're in a good position for that, because it's going to be such a small impact. But the challenge is, like you're saying, once we industrialize, once we take it to the next level, once the tractors and the cranes and that kind of stuff get there, I don't know. But I think we're a bit far from that right now. But it's hard to say. We'll see, especially with robotics the way it is now, and computers. The Mars Perseverance rover is now working on autonomous modes, not forever, but for brief interludes where it's just doing its own thing, and it's using its own brains to sort of plan out what it wants to do. And I can't see how we don't have that kind of technology for the moon to do something similarly autonomous. So yeah, it's very good. Astronauts, a question for Lee, brought back a camera that had viable bacteria and back on Earth. Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking of cameras, one of the funny things too is they're going to send up a new laser on Orion. It's going to have a laser communication system, so they'll be able to broadcast back to Earth in 4K HD. And the Canada arm as well, Canada Arm 3, will have 4K cameras on it. So we should get some really, really cool and just incredibly high definition images back, video, yeah, and go from there. Question from Doug. Are the areas with water located conveniently close to potential habitat sites? If not, how does Artemis plan to transport the water to the habitat site? Good question. Yeah, I think it's going to start slowly. They're going to send out some rovers, send down some people. When the people go down, I don't think that they're going to be manufacturing anything that they're going to need for survival. It's not going to be a situation where you have a week's worth of food and water and you've got to find another week. You're supposed to be there for 2, but you only have 1 week, you got to find the rest. It's not going to be like that. They're going to go down with everything they need for their mission. And then after that, they're going to work on some viability. They're looking at 3D printing structures using the soil or like the terrain, or it's not terrain because it's not terra, but the environment of the moon to do that as well. So yeah, but yeah, I don't think they're going to have to be fending for themselves anytime soon. There will be a lot of proof of concept testing to make sure that we can use that water, it's possibly drinkable, things like that. So yeah, good question. So I think we're good on the questions. If there's any last questions before we wrap up.
Yeah, I did see one a little higher up asking about if there's a risk of damaging the integrity of historical sites like the Apollo 11 site. Does the Artemis Accord address this?
I don't know if it does. I haven't read it. It's quite long. But obviously, I don't think they're going to land anything directly on it. The moon's pretty big, and there's lots of really interesting things to look at. And so if you look at like a map of like the landers on Mars and stuff like that, you'll see that they're actually all in quite scattered and in separate places. Yeah. So there's always something new and interesting, and you don't want to be the first person to go back to the moon just to see the other guy's stuff and everybody be like, oh yeah, you want your own lunar landing on your own new site so that you've got your own new photos and stuff. You don't want to be in somebody else's museum, So yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed my time with you guys, and let me know if I can ever come back if you have more questions. And thanks for listening. And if you have more questions, or if you're interested in more about this stuff, NASA.gov. We've got the YouTube videos with like live streams, all sorts of really cool stuff to check it out. Yeah. Oh, a question from Peter. Peter's got his hand up.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, Matthew. Thank you for an excellent presentation. I wonder if you could shift gears for just a moment and talk about your role and involvement with the NASA Ambassador Program. I was really thrilled to read that you're working in this way, because I looked into it pretty closely here in London, Ontario. We've got a group that is doing outreach and so on for space research, and we were told that NASA ambassadors are not allowed to be outside of the USA. So in other words, in Canada. I wonder if you could share how that worked, because we'd love to get involved. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a good question. This program is run by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and so it's coordinated there out of Pasadena. It is open to American citizens only at this time, and the challenge is it's a bit of it's weird, because the goal for the Solar System Ambassador Program, it's funded with American dollars. And so the goal is to reach Americans. And so in the United States, there's hundreds of us, in every state, and they work with planetariums and schools, universities, that kind of thing. And then, so I've been working here for this program, but I'm connected with the U.S. consulate in Vancouver, and so they typically offer events for Canadians. So their mandate, they're funded from the U.S. State Department, and their mandate is to work with Canadians. And so I do a hybrid of both. Back before COVID, I was going back over the border to Washington State, and so I was doing a lot of events there for the public library system. And I was doing some lectures and stuff at Science World and whatnot. But if they're so you would have to find an American citizen who was a member of this program in Ontario. But if you're doing virtual events, or if you have a virtual outreach, I'd be happy to help out. Yeah, for sure. No, just permanent residency. Someone's asking if I have dual citizenship. But if you do have any questions, the consulate, I don't know where you are in Ontario, but the consulate in Ottawa, or the embassy in Ottawa, would be able to connect you with some folks from the science directorate. Or if you want to shoot me an email, we can get you some resources out there, because I know there are there's a directory online of solar system ambassadors, and so there should be some close to the border. And once the border opens back up, if you're not too far, they might be happy to come out and speak to some of your crowds. And I know I would. It would be a lot of fun if I was out there in like Vermont or something. So yeah, but yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know, and we can try and work something out. Yeah. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Matthew, for another great presentation. So thanks, everyone. We don't have a lecture next month. We usually take August off, but we will have another lecture in September. Speaker to be determined. So watch Meetup for more information there.
Matthew, maybe you could put your email address on the chat if that's no objection.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for having me. And if you have any further questions about NASA, or just want any updates, just let us know, and we'd be happy to stop by again.
All right. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks.
Awesome.
Everyone.
Thanks, Matthew.
And we'll see you all in September. Have a good summer.